Something that happens when people truly know who we are. Obviously, a deeper connection is gained, and that deeper knowing of our essence, our being, it comes down to really being understood. Now, most of us end up in our lives where relationships, even the closest and most intimate relationships, can fall into patterns. And so deeper inquiry doesn't necessarily happen. The systems of communication become very routinized, and we can forget that we can continue to still get to know that other person in a deeper, richer way as they evolve as humans and we evolve as humans. For those of us who are single and we don't have that intimate partnership, we also want to be seeking friendships and connections and surround ourselves by at least one or two people who have this deeper knowing of who we are. Sometimes this starts at the very beginning with who am I? Doing that deeper self inquiry can be very, very helpful. That's a big part of my journey. And as we start to explore and understand and become the more evolved version of ourselves, sometimes those relationships from the past that served us well, they don't anymore. They've they've provided a purpose. They've lived in us in a way that really was beneficial, but they may have outlived their usefulness. And that can sound harsh, but it's part of who we are as humans. We're not stuck in that person that we were in our 20s and 30s. We shift and evolve in our 40s and 50s, and again in our 50s and 60s. So it only makes sense that those who are most closely aligned with us, they're either evolving along a similar pathway or new folks are showing up who are supporting us and knowing who we truly are. But again, it starts with our own work. We can go through life just stuck in the patterns of moving through and going through the motions of life without a lot of reflection. However, in midlife, we are given that opportunity. And so this is why I like to challenge men, gay men over 50, to take that time when there is that little bit of a scratch, like an itch that you're trying to resolve, and you may ignore it, and that's okay, and just go on business as usual. But it may be that that itch is about, why am I not feeling as content and fulfilled as I thought I would at this stage in life? This is that great opportunity to begin the exploration. And in doing that exploration, I think it's very much a solo endeavor. But when you start to bring people in along and start sharing the discoveries that you're making, this is where deep understanding happens. When we are understood, when we can share the path that we're on, and we don't need people to approve or disapprove. It's not about that. It's really an issue of sharing and deeper connection. When we share with others and allow them space to share with us, and we hold that space respectfully, even if we're not fully in alignment with who they're becoming or what they're doing, this is essential, because this is that unconditional love. Sometimes we don't give that unconditional love to ourselves. I know I've been had a problem with that for a long time. And then when we can give that unconditional love to others, that's really, really important. So we don't need people to be mere cookie cutters of our experiences, but we do want to be able to, A, have understanding of them and for them to have an understanding of us. Why? Well, because then we are being witnessed. And part of the human journey is to be seen. Now, some of us will have had experiences in our lives where maybe we didn't have that kind of support, right? Maybe the family situation when we were younger, there wasn't a lot of, unconditional love. It was very conditional, or maybe it was totally absent. So some of us, when we grew up in that environment, we needed to understand what being seen, but being witnessed was all about. And even if you did have a supportive and loving family, as we go through our iterations of our identity and who we are, being witnessed is a huge part of that. It's part of the coming out stage, right? When we're all of a sudden amongst people who are like us and we realize I'm not the only one, that's being witnessed, right? That's giving some authenticity approval, if you will, to who and what we're becoming. And having this in our lives, especially at midlife, is really, really key, because what can happen, and a lot of us will have seen this depending on where we're at past 50, is that there is an invisibility that can happen, that we don't want to just disappear, right? So having someone notice us, having someone reach out to us, having someone stay connected to us, having someone who understands us and what we're going through, having someone that can bear witness to our journey, that keeps us from disappearing. And when we maybe are withdrawing and pulling back, those loving individuals can pull us out and say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? There's real power in that. And to me, that is what community is about. So I find that oftentimes we use that word gay community, but how many of us don't feel that sense of community? Those of you that have your gay social circles and your gay activities that you do together, you may have that sense of community in terms of doing things. But here I'm talking a little bit deeper about what is that community where you are understood, where you are witnessed, where it's less than the superficial kind of chatter that often we humans involve ourselves in, not just gay men, but in general. And we're going a little bit deeper. This is the beauty of deeper and richer connection. And it's important because there is an emotional safety that comes with this, that we're not feeling isolated and alone. We're not feeling like our lives don't matter. We're not feeling that invisibility that sometimes older gay men feel in the gay world, right? And that's key to us growing community. When we're aging this way and finding these deeper and richer connections, it also creates an environment, a place, a foundation for honoring the wisdom of our journeys, for honoring the experiences, and to be able to show up and provide our stories where possible. It starts, I would say, with sharing those stories with people in our own community of elders. We're building eldership here. We're building conscious aging here. And in sharing those stories amongst ourselves, we will share them by way of the message rippling out to other generations as well. That's why we have the Wisdom Trust podcast, so that people can hear our stories, so that we can share and that we can be witnessed by others outside of our demographic. We don't need hundreds of friends. So that egoic driven notion of quantity over quality, you don't need tons. What you need is real authentic relationships, right? It's all well and good to have a lot of acquaintances who maybe you call friends, but who are those ones that are going to be there, especially as we age and things shift, and maybe there's some times where we need additional support, maybe there's some health issues. Who's going to be around for those? If you have a partner, that's great, but sometimes that shifts too. One of you will be gone at some point. So we want to make sure that we're knowing who, being known by others, being seen and witnessed by others, and ultimately being unconditionally loved by others, and being part of community. So I'm going to leave you with this question: who really knows the man you are today? And I'm not talking about the roles you play, and I'm not talking about, you know, the superficial stuff, but the person that you've become at this stage in your life. So who really knows you as that full you today? And if you're like, I don't know, and maybe if you're like, I don't even really know for myself, that's a great opportunity to sort of take some time to do that deeper, richer inquiry, because you want to have these last years and decades to be rich, full, and complete. And that richness and fullness and completion doesn't come from the third kitchen renovation or going to the gym for the seventh time this week. Those are all fine, but it comes from deeper, richer connection within all of these things, being understood, being witnessed, unconditionally loved by community. I'll leave you with that, and I'll be back tomorrow.